Okay, so let me get started. Hopefully it will work. Maybe it will fail. It's my great pleasure to be invited by the STAR Junior representatives. Just in case you have no idea who this idiot is, given this talk, my name is Kong. My office is just a few offices down this way, so feel free to talk with me. And I want to make it absolutely crystal clear. Okay, this is a very personal view. There are many things, if not all, can be disagreed with. Okay, it's very, very subjective with respect to all the talks you have heard about. Okay, so let's get started. So this is a typical talk I will see in the conferences. And then the yada yada, thank you for the invitations, everything. And then today my talk is about measurements of a Bermudan sloop performance as a function of wind speed, current, points of sail in the Caribbean Sea in the winter. Okay? And then I will go through my outline of the talk. And the outline is that I will first introduce sailing. Okay? And the second is the method about sailing. And then I will talk about some highlights about sailing. And finally, I will conclude by a few remarks about sailing. So, introduction to sailing. Okay, glad that you guys find funny. That usually just goes on for 5 minutes, but let me read it. So sailing is a sport, it's about sailboats, and you can use it to explore the world. And then actually, sailing is absolutely very interesting. That is for understanding of the nature of citizenship and the history of the humankind. And then also that there are many problems that we don't understand yet, right? And then this is the sailboats. Basically, the rigs means that how you really rig your boats, different kind of sails. And this is called the points of sails. And then here is a boat, which have all the important components about a sailboat, okay? Tell me, what did you learn?
The sport.
That's great, but what else did you learn? So how do you trim the sail when you're going like 45 degrees towards the wind? Okay.
Swim.
So does this feel familiar to you? This is exactly how I feel when I go to conferences and when I see the talks. And then the rest, this is the first few slides. I only remember my emails and a few Instagram posts. Okay? So today I'm going to tell you 3 pillars of a talk, in my opinion, are the most important. And then I think it's called audience, story, and delivery. It's who, and what, and how. So let's get right into it. Who is your audience? So let me share my golden formula. It's called L equals to T minus 1. Okay? So L means the level you should aim equals to the level that you think your audience it is minus 1, okay? So let me give you some examples. So for example, if you're talking to general audiences, what kind of level you should aim, okay? So let me warm it up for you, okay? So I would say high school students, because you have no idea who they are, and they could average between college students, non-college students. You want to be high school students level to tell people what you do. Second, condensed matter physicists. This is usually what we say, you need to talk to the colleagues in your department, not nuclear and particle physics. So what level you should name? Anybody want to try?
College student.
Perfect. You'll get a beer. And then you go to postdocs in your field. Okay, now, who wants to give it a try?
College
Grad students. Grad students. Okay, you have a coffee. So I would say first year grad student, right? Because you have a postdocs, he might not work in your expertise, right? He might not know jet. He probably know or she knows flow. So maybe aim for first year grad students. Okay, the final one is tricky. So what if you're talking to your advisor who knows your work the best?
Yourself.
What?
Yourself.
Myself? Oh, come on. I would say your advisor 3 weeks ago. All right, pop quiz. Now, I'm really going to ask you. So now I put them in the context. A skier on a chairlift. How are you going to aim your level? That's cool. right? It's kind of general audience, right? High school students. Okay, second one, I really want to answer, okay? Now you're going for a job to give a colloquium in a department, right? Think about this condensed matter physicist that you're talking to. So what level are you going to aim? College students. Okay, now you're giving a quark matter talk. Everybody wants to give a quark matter talk. What level are you going to aim? I would say first year grad students. You know, we have very experienced professors. We have first year or college students. You average over, that's kind of postdoc in your field. Okay? So finally, a project reviewers. Let me give you this context. Who wants to give it a try? What is this? Okay, you have no idea.
Project reviewers 3 years ago.
So I would say not applicable, okay? And this is actually breaks down because the nature, let's say for reviewers, it's a very mixed audience. You have sometimes no idea who they are even, right? They have expertise, definitely, because they're your reviewers, but they might not be the expertise in your field. So when I really apply my golden formula, it breaks down. So what should we do? So instead, let me give you an example. An independent detector review that we have done. This is a true event. I'm not making this up. So the context is we're doing two proposals competing for the baseline design for the EIC. Okay? And then here's our detectors, right? I want to give you the simplest version of detector. It's a disk, and then you detect particles. So the reviewers ask the question, can you comment on the edge effect and the active or dead area as a function of eta and phi? Okay? Because you're building a detector. This is the detector. Here's our response. So we make the plot x and y, and then we show that for different cuts, you see these dead areas. I don't know if you can see it from the projector. This groove is exactly trying to comment that there's this mechanical holder, and there's some ribs. So because when the photon or this particle hit the ribs, it actually becomes your dead area, right? We think we perfectly answered the question. And then we had a wonderful review, except this slides. So this is one of the two homework questions. And then the reviewers put into formal email and saying that, can you clarify your response in terms of eta and phi? Okay, you probably are lost here. But let me tell you what I think. We talked to the detector expert who actually built this detector, and they think this is absolutely ridiculous because nobody built detectors in terms of eta and phi phase space. We built it in x and y in these coordinates. And then when you try to quantify the dead area, they just do it. They think from a detector expert, that's what they would do. However, the reviewers, when they ask the question, they want nothing but the answers directly to their question. So the point here is that they are case by case about your audience, right? You need to understand your goal and understand your audience. In this example, what do you want from your audience is a smooth and successful review. So what is implying is that you want less hiccups, you want less questions that makes them to doubt your results, and so on and so on. And in order to do that, audience want from you is that they want a direct answers, no surprises. Let me tell you, reviewers hate surprises. They just want the things they wonder about and nothing more or nothing less, okay? They wanted to do it with minimum effort. So now, for those of you who have not gotten your PhD, so let me give you a homework, and I'm not gonna give you the answer. Is for your thesis defense, what would you do? Okay, let's give the sailing thing another try, okay? You ready? So sailing is how we explored the world for 5,000 years. So 3000 BC, the Egyptian figured out a boat and putting up a sail, a piece of cloth, and the wind can push it around. And then the Egyptian also invented how to sail against the wind. And this is literally a mind-blowing concept because now in order to just go with where the wind goes, because that you have no control, now you can point towards the wind and you can go anywhere you want. So literally, this is how humankind discovered the world. For example, Columbus came to America. In this talk, I will talk about how sailing has changed the world. What did you learn this time? Okay, anybody? You?
Yes, so it's 3,000 years, 3,000 BC, they invented the cell, and then they figure
Okay.
out how to control the direction.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's very good. Because I didn't give you anything else, right? So for your audience, I want to tell you less is more. Because the level of your audience should decide what content is appropriate, okay? And the best level is the level that your audience can understand. By putting up on the right-hand side, I assume most of you guys have no idea what those technical terms about sailing. Given the left-hand side is better. However, good talks or bad talks are very subjective. But the level that the audience can actually understand is less subjective. So my advice is less is more. More is too much. Aim less. Okay? So the next question is how to go from more to less, because you have something that everything you think is important as an expert. But how do you condense from right to the left? How do you go from more to less? To answer this, you need the next question, which is called story. Okay? Story, let me repeat what neuroscientists say, okay? It's what our brains rely on for understanding the world. And let me break it down for you. So what's your story? So right now, you guys probably have been thinking about what's your story, what's my research flow, JRAA, and so on, right? That's your story. But before you answer that, let me give you a quote. It's one of my favorite ones. It's by Flannery O'Connell. It's a famous short story writer. And she said, I found that most people know what a story is until they sit down and write one. Okay? So before you go to what's your story, try to answer me. What is a story? Anybody wants to give it a try? Okay, go ahead.
Sequence of events with a beginning, middle, and an end.
Perfect. What happens? Yeah, this is exactly not the story. This is called plot, okay? And for example, let me give you a case. So measurement of UPCJ psi in go 200 GeV at rig, that's what happens. Somebody skied 5 days at WWND a month ago. That's also what happens. Someone, okay? Technically, we call it the protagonist, not the story. That is the who, that's the main characters, right? Star has made measurements of J psi UPC in go 200 GeV, and Kong ski 5 days at WWND. Okay? Third, the goal. Also not the story. We call it the story question, meaning that what is the motivation driving this story going forward? So let me put you in context. So measurement of UPC J psi in yada 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 by Star was trying to understand nuclear proton modification. Calm ski 5 days in the afternoon was trying to better understand the talks in the morning. Okay? Those are the motivation. Those are the goal. But none of them is story. So now you're really curious what a story is, right? So a story is how someone changes. And you might think I'm ridiculous. And I think so too. When I read this, I think this is absolutely mind-blowing. So let me give you a quote. As counterintuitive as it may sound, the story is not about the plot or even what happens in it. Stories are about how we, rather than the world, change. So story is an internal journey, not an external. By Lisa Kron is a famous writer and teach people how to write. And after reading this, I said, okay, can I apply this to understand some of the stories or even research that we have been doing? And after that, I found it so exciting, and I kind of agreed afterwards. So I decided to write down my first corollary in my life, not in physics, but in kind of, I don't know, give a talk. So here's what I wrote. Stories are about how we, physicists, rather than the physics, change. The change is our perception, our intuition, and our fundamental understanding. Because all the story that we can comprehend have to be someone that to understand the story. Physics, special relativity never changed for millions of years, but it was the human being who actually changed their perception about time and distance. Okay? So this is how someone changes. And now someone is we as physicists. Okay, want to give another try? Let's go back to sailing. So there are 3 things about sailing that will blow your mind. First, sailing, you can actually do upwind, not only wear downwind, right? You can go towards the wind. Second, sailing upwind is faster than sailing downwind, okay? This is absolutely mind-blowing because wind can push you, but then, going against the wind can be faster than going downwind. And the third, sailing can be faster than the wind itself, okay? In this talk, I will talk about how sailing works in real life. What about this time? So here, this is my story. At least this is one version of my story. And I want to show the audience, which is you, the perception change about sailing. So for your story, let me give you another example comparing to the first slides I gave you. Less is more. You need to focus on something, okay? You need to show people that what you are trying to tell them. So good or bad stories are very subjective. For example, he might found some talk, or my research is interesting, and the other guy found it absolutely boring. That's very subjective. However, with the help of story, our brains can help understand the story better and help them focus, okay? Let the good or bad, leave it to your audience. But if you present them in terms of the story, they will better focus. They will better understand what you're trying to say. Okay, so this is the 2. Here's the 3rd. Usually, I think the 2, at some point during your PhD or in your career, people have talked about you need to know your audience, you need to know your story. But then this 3rd one, delivery, is the least has been discussed. Okay? So today I want to talk about what is the delivery. And I think the key is to get your audience attention and make them focus on your story. Okay? You ready? So how to focus? Now, I don't have the audio. Okay, let's get started, okay?
How well can you focus? Here's a quick test. Your task is to ignore the people in the foreground and count, as precisely as you can, how many times the guy in the back jumps on the trampoline. Ready? Go. How many jumps did you count?
11.
If you answered 11, congratulations, that's correct. But did you see the gorilla who delicately tiptoed into the frame and tiptoed out? The first version.
Okay, who saw the gorilla? Okay, less than half. Okay, so the statistic shows 50%, okay? However, the whole point, can we do the series? Okay, go back to the. So the whole point is that this is a famous experiment done in the 90s, that they want to show you how short and how narrow our focus is. There's no such thing, it's called multitasking, basically. You cannot do it. Our brain is not doing that. And if you really look into literature, and they show different kind of experiments, how your focus is really, really bad when you're doing multitasking. Okay? So here is, this experiment is called the invisible gorilla. Okay. All right, I really hope Brookhaven can get some technology advance by showing a video to the audience. Okay. Okay, so our focus is in a crisis more than ever. Okay, so let me give you just some statistics. So an average adult can only focus on a task for 3 minutes. Okay, and then on average, college students switch tasks every 65 seconds and can only focus on the one task for 19 seconds. Mind blowing. I don't think I will fully believe the statistics, but this is their studies. But my point is that a talk is usually 15 to 30 minutes. If you're going for a job talk or seminar, it's an hour. So let me tell you, all of you are in deep trouble because people can only focus for 3 minutes and you have to give a 1 hour talk. How are you going to do it? So why focusing so hard? Here is actually one of us. It's a member of APS fellow. And then he invented this thing, it's called isolator. He found absolutely everything is distracting. So he invented a helmet and he pumped oxygen in and then he has, a little goggle. And then he can focus. He thinks that will help. All right? So here is a book. Now I'm not going to details. You can take a look later. But basically, this person is summarizing all the reasons that is destroying our focus. And it's a great book. I really suggest you guys read it. And then I'll give you one example. It's called switching. So the IQ difference, they did an experiment between with and without distraction. The IQ difference is about 10 points, right? So if you focus or you have an email comes in, and then that is twice the impact of smoking weed, okay? I'm not saying you should smoke, instead of checking your emails, but that is the impact. So the question is, how are you going to make your audience focus? So, tell your audience on the first slide what your talk is about or what your story is about. And here's an analogy. So there's a famous, or whether famous or not, in 2007, a theorist in literature did an experiment. He rushed through the airport, and he just by picking the book and read the first sentence of a book and decide which book to pick or which book to read. And then I will review what book he picked if you ask me later. But then Lisa Cron, she said, you need to hook readers from the very first sentence, okay? And after reading this, I got so excited again, and I decided to write my second corollary in my life, okay? So now you can guess what the second corollary is. You need to hook audiences from the very first slide, okay? That's how fast you need to do it. So to tell your story on the first slide, I give you, again, this example. On the right versus left. Good or bad is subjective. I leave it to you. However, if the left talk is the talk I'm going to give, I do it on the first slide. After first slide, you need to know what my talk is about. My talk is about how selling works, and there are 3 things to blow your mind. That's it. The rest of the talk will explain, but you don't leave the audience wondering around what your talk is about. So the first slide, tell your audience what is this about. You think I'm crazy, but take this. Tip number 1 is called answer first. You tell your audience what your talk is about as soon as possible, all right? And then it's best if it's on the first slide. And there's a second aspect. It's called the midpoint crisis. And this is called the Hanukkah candles. So this is a Jewish holiday that lasts for 8 consecutive nights. So every night in this Jewish traditional holidays, you light a candle. And then people did a study and saying that how often or the percentage people actually do this as a, with the religion. And they found that there's a U-shaped pattern that people usually do a very good job at the beginning. They light their candles and being very serious. And then at the very end, they also light candles, very likely. However, there's this middle point, midpoint, that is where people fail to lit candles. So it turned out there's a universal pattern. It's called peak, trough, rebound. And this is across industry, across almost anything that you can imagine. So I give you a few examples. It's your mood in a day, your performance, And then it can be your happiness, it can be your attention, and the time scale can be a day, a week-long workshop, a multi-year project, building the EIC, for example, and then even a talk. Okay? This is a universal pattern, peak, trough, rebound. So, maybe you can guess where I'm going. What usually happens to a talk? So let's take this as an example. Attention of all of you right now. At the beginning, most focus. What is this talk about, right? And then you start losing your attention. You're starting checking your emails, working on the analysis. At the middle point, the midpoint crisis, you're probably completely lost, right? And then if lucky that you come back, you may wonder what this talk is about again. And believe me, this is sometimes how we understand talk, right? Because you have no idea what they talk about in the middle, and then you look at the conclusion and said, okay, I kind of understand. How about the talk? So let me give you another example. Important content of a talk, which is unfortunately the opposite of your attention span. Because you give introduction or outline, right? I have four bullets: the introduction, methods, results, conclusion. Who doesn't? Who doesn't give such an order? I mean, most of us give that order. But then you use that attention for something completely meaningless because you didn't tell them anything about what you're going to talk about. And then you give them more details, and when you get to the most important results, your discovery of something, people have completely lost. This is really important, okay? I'm trying to tell you how I feel, you know? Tip number 2, because of this shape, now we're physicists, we figure out solution. How should we do it? We should do it your story early. Tip number 1, do it early. This is another perspective of telling the most important things early, because your attention is most focused at the beginning. So tell your important message early and repeatedly, right? Because you cannot shrink a 1-hour talk to just 30 seconds. You have to go through the talk, but then people's attention, you cannot change them. So do it repeatedly. You do an important message over and over again. This is what we usually tell them. I tell you you tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them what you just told them, right? You keep repeating the important messages. Often, a real talk looks like this, okay? It's details, details, and details. This is the introduction of selling. This is the method of selling. This is the results of selling. This is the conclusion of selling, okay? There are a lot of talks like this, okay? I have to make a selling talk, to give you the point. So, number 3, be simple. Make it simple. Make it as simple as possible. I use tip number 2 to tell you the tip number 3, okay? I repeat it 3 times for you. Be simple. So, go back to my slides later. This is for you later. A few practical tips that may help preparing a talk. So for example, each title, minimize your text, and so on. But let me tell you something really important. And then if you don't agree anything that I've talked about today, take this. Have your own style and be confident, okay? Nothing can beat a confident speaker, even though you're BS, right? Even though you're telling them, nobody agree, but be confident, because you are the only one, or at least the only one, who believe yourself, right? This is the physics I'm doing. This is the thing that's most interesting. You have to be confident. So right now, you think telling a story is hard? Try it with dancing. So this is the legit thing from the Science magazine. They have this contest to dance your PhD thesis, okay? This is your winner in 2022. Xiaohan Wu, her thesis, this is the dance, go check out the video. It's called The Journey of a Photon Through the Early Universe. Quite relevant to our field. I watched about 5 minutes, I have no idea what the thesis is about. So stick with presentation. So summary, less is more is too much. I hope I repeat enough times for you to understand. Audience, my golden formula, L equals to T minus 1, okay? What you cannot apply, understand your goal and understand your audience and tailor it to the audience. The best level for your audience is the level they can understand, right? Don't show off how many PhD you have, how many schools you have attended, how many analysis PRL you have published. Tell them something they can understand. Second, story. Story help us understand. And if you remember, story is how we physicists change. So you have to pick some story to present your research. Third, delivery. Answer first, repeat, and be simple. Okay? So having a perfect talk is only 80% done, okay? Because the talk, there are 20% Q&A, right? I haven't talked about any of the question and answer, but you know where to find me, right? So acknowledgement. So I want to have my big thanks to people who constantly provide feedback, okay, over the years. My supervisor, Thomas, my thesis advisor, Wei, they usually say when they saw my first version of my talk, they said, Kong, this is nuts. Go back. This is too much. That's the most thing that I've ever heard from these two people, okay? Cut in half. I have no patience of looking through all of your slides. Make it simpler, right? This is all the feedbacks, most of the feedbacks I got. And then of course my wife Estella, who suffered through all of the years that I rehearsal with her. And then she actually gave me the most inspiring comment ever to me. And she said, what the heck are you talking about? Right? Because she's not a physicist. You need to explain to her and understand. Okay, I didn't make all of this up, okay? These are the references, and that's exactly according to the books. Put it on the shelf right here. So feel free to read or check it out if you're interested. And let me end. A quote, I like it the most. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. So when it comes to making a talk, keep practice and try to use the system that I provided if you agree. And then don't fool yourself. Keep doing it. Thank you very much. And please, please, if you can help me, this is the first time I give this talk. And then this is the most challenging talk I've ever given. Okay? Fill out this survey. Give me a little feedback. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to Kong. Very impressive. Yes, he made this talk even I can understand and about the selling, I mean. So, any questions in the Zoom room?
Yeah. So if you've got one boat 1 approaching on starboard tack to the windward mark on the ley line, and if you have boat 2 over here on port tack coming up with an tacking.
Starboard tack wind.
Even if the even if the port boat tack is coming in and tacking within 3 boat length circle.
That I'm not sure. Starboard tack winds if you have coming through a port tack boat. That's my understanding. I don't do selling for profession, as you know.
Thank you for your talk. So, what if we want to get a feedback from the same level experts as you are, and you want to present some details? And how would you do? I understand that your talk is applicable to big conferences where you say something to audience. But
I think I will refer.
feedback.
Right. Good question. I think about this too, and I refer to the second part of the audience is understand your goal and your audience. Right.
Yeah.
Now your goal is different
Yeah.
than other kind of talks. Right. Your goal is trying to get feedback, and then you want to show the details and you want to get them. Then you have to tailor your talk to fulfill your goal. So that is the answer to you. I cannot tell you micromanage your slides to tell you how you're going to show your details because, different people have different ways to do it. But my talk is trying to tell you there's some less subjective aspect of giving talk, right? And this is tailored to your audience and to your goal. And even when you're trying to communicate with the details, you also may think about the techniques of delivery, right? Because people's attention is just very short. And that is also why we need to write papers. We need to write papers, long papers. There are PRLs, there are PRCs, and in PRCs, there is even appendices. Why? Why are we doing that? Why do we just dump the analysis and put it on archive? Because people don't read it. That is, you need to be having a focus, because everything is important, meaning nothing is important.
Me?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you think it is redundant to have a talk that's longer than 30 minutes, considering how short is our attention?
That is really by the requirement. I think, let me put it this way. A longer talk, especially an hour, is more challenging than a 30-minute talk. Because the exact reason I just gave you. People check their emails. They cannot live without a phone, right? And then if your talk cannot grab their attention, they lost it. So I would say scientifically is more challenging. So you have to work harder to give a seminar, especially when you're an early career scientist, first time you're invited to a seminar, right? Think about it. Think about the tactics or the strategy that you should use to deliver your seminar. And to be honest, for the seminar I gave, I usually do it with 40 minutes, sometimes 35. Because what? Sometimes you feel bad about 1 hour and then you give only like 40 minutes. I don't feel bad because if I talking another 20 minutes, nobody can hear or nobody can understand. What's the point? Let them have a coffee or something.
Okay, Heiko, great talk. I have one follow-up. Do you have any suggestions how to apply all of this so that it survives our PWG and Star Talks review? Because I feel anytime I try this, I was always followed up by comments. Oh, on this slide you need to add this, and this, and on this slide this, and this, and eventually it all crumbles under review from comments from other people.
So to answer you, the next time I want to give this talk, of course, it's my intention, is to PWG conveners. Okay? Because I feel like, no offense, right? They have the way they do things. Star needs to be absolutely correct in science, absolutely not responsible for personal views, as we know very well now. And then there's absolutely many things they have to. So there are so many things attached. So I totally understand the difficulty. But maybe there's a sweet spot. Maybe there's some balance that we can, improve. That's all I can say.
Okay.
What was the book picked at the airport bookstore?
You pay attention. So, it's just an example, okay? The book is called What Came Before He Shot Her, okay? And then now, why this? So this person actually wrote a New York Times article about this experiment. So this is the winner. What came before he shot her? The first sentence, let me read it out. Joe Campbell, a person, 11 years old at the time, began his descent towards murder with a bus ride. First sentence. It's very subjective. You can say it's interesting, you can say it's not interesting, but the point from this author is that the first sentence makes you wonder what happens next. Right? What this story is about. This story is about, it's very clear, it's about a murder, right? 11 years old, descend on a bus ride about a murder. Now you wonder, did he murder somebody or did he get murdered or, they try to hook you at the very first sentence. And the analogy is that when we give talks, it would be best if you hook the audience from the first slide.
Okay. More questions?
I had a sailing question. I don't know if we have time for that.
Sure.
How can sailing upwind be faster than downwind?
You should check out the Wikipedia.
Okay.
But basically, the idea is physics, okay? It's that when you have downwind, your speed is limited by the speed of the wind. But then if you're going upwind, your sail works like airplane wings, right? So you actually go into this so-called pull mode. So the wind pulls you forward, and then the faster you go, the stronger this pull. And it is also related to your hull shape, your sail height, and so on, okay? I'm not getting into details, but this is how you work. Okay, no more question about sailing, okay? That's the example, I hope you get it. Yes.
So with the like peak and trough shape, like you mentioned that it's important to hammer in your important points when you have their attention. But do you think there is any hope of, even for a little bit, like reclaiming attention in the middle of the talk?
Very good question.
Yeah.
So as to this, when did I show you my video?
In the middle of the talk.
Exactly. That is how I do it. Because at the time, I can see from your face, you started feeling tired, right? You said, okay, Con is gonna go for another 15 minutes. But now I show you a video, which is you have no idea about. And then that will, get your attention a little bit better. Of course, if the video and audio in this room better, it would be much better. But that is how you do it. And of course, this scale, let's not be a physicist, so intense. The scale can be different, right? The scale can be, a couple percent, or it can be 10% for people. So don't make this as a scientific, evidence for anything. But there are actually hard science to back it up.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that for different people, this scale can be very different.
Thank you.
So when you said be confident and have your own style, I guess I understand the being confident part, but what do you mean by have your own style?
Well, I mean, people said, okay, put this word on the left corner instead of the right, and then use this and then that. I think your style is something that stands out, right? We as physicists, in my opinion, has the privilege to be who we are. I want to show some things that is actually my style. Why should I give in a talk like him, right? Why should I be giving a talk like my PhD thesis advice? I want to have my own style. So I think we should use the scientific system to design your talk. For example, if you believe it, right? Answer first, repeat, be simple, and so on and so on. But how you actually execute them, you can have your own style. There's no single way that the talk needs to be given. Right? Style, let's say you like, what color do you like?
Green?
Okay, use green.
Okay.
I didn't use green. I actually like green too, but that is the example. Use your style.
I think this is also something that would be good to, at least, because conveners might want certain aspect of the analysis on an earlier slide than when I present results, for example. If that's a detail they think it's important that should come early in my introduction, then that could lead up to my introduction slide being too much, for example. So I think that's important, but also sort of in the current setup, we're sort of limited by that.
For every situation, there will be difficulty, right? How you want to present it this way and that way, and there's no perfect talk, right? There's no such thing. There's not even a good talk because it's really depending on subjective, right? You. So hopefully you will figure out a way to present yours.
I would like to also add on behalf of conveners everywhere, if it's purely a style point, I think you're fully within your rights to argue that with the convener. You can say, this is not physics, this is just how I would like to present it. I think it's clear in this particular order or something like that. And maybe the convener will still disagree. I can't guarantee that will work, but I think that should be at least something you can push back on.
Okay, any questions on Zoom? No, they probably all check emails. I think it's a very successful talk. People follow very well.
Please
Do the survey.
Okay, please, I'm begging. Okay.
Okay.
I have a question regarding the survey because the first question is, did you participate online or in person? And the options are yes, no.
Oh.
So I can literally answer the question, but I think that you
I will-
want something else.
I will change it.
Yeah.
Don't fill out the survey.
That's a way to check if you look at the survey. Okay. Okay. Thanks all the speakers in the morning. So, because now it's around 12:30. Well, let's meet around 2. Okay. Follow the schedule.